Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. I have been a long-time reader of this subreddit, so it is honestly kind of surreal that I now find myself writing about an experience that I had very recently. It was a Friday night, and I had gone to bed early as I had work on Saturday morning. After reading in bed for a bit, I drifted off at around 10:30 p.m., only to wake up about an hour later to loud screams and people yelling profanities. I thought my girlfriend was watching a movie with the volume way up, so I went out into the lounge room to ask her to turn it down a little. But instead, the TV was off, and my girlfriend was staring at the front door with her eyes wide. Our apartment is on the ground floor of the building, and so our front doors open directly out into the lobby of the building. The voices in question were coming directly from the lobby, and I could not make out specifics, but there was a lot of swearing. In my defense, I was half asleep, and the language of the country that I live in is not my first language. My first thought was that it was some kind of domestic dispute, but after listening, I realized that it was a group of men that sounded extremely aggressive. I looked at the WhatsApp group chat for my apartment building, and to my horror, I saw a message from one of the people in it that there were armed men in the building and that we should not leave our flats. The country I live in is experiencing a marked uptick in crime, and I had heard stories of armed groups of men robbing entire apartment blocks. But these had seemed fairly apocryphal to me. However, that was my first thought, that these men would kick down our door and then rob us. One of my dogs started to growl at the commotion outside, and I shushed him, and thankfully he obeyed. I heard a commotion in the apartment above me, and I went out to my patio to see what was happening. I heard what sounded like a large piece of furniture being knocked over, and women and children screaming in terror. At this point, I had no idea what was going on, but I knew that by now they would have robbed us already if that is what they had planned to do. My girlfriend and I decided to hide in a small shed at the end of our patio, monitoring the group chat on our phones. Our bigger dog silently stood watch outside of the door of the shed, and his eyes locked on the sliding door at the end of the patio. I would find my smaller dog later, cowering between the washing machine and the dryer. After 10 extremely tense minutes, I heard the screeching of tires, signaling what I hoped was the perpetrators fleeing the scene. Eventually, someone in the group chat said that the police had arrived, and we breathed a huge sigh of relief, and I came out of hiding and opened the front door. Alarmingly, on the floor of the lobby, there were zip ties that had been cut, and the security guard was talking to one of the tenants. The man was bleeding from a large gash on his face and looked extremely shaken. Over the next few hours, the story would unfold. The man I saw with a gash on his face was the tenant in the upstairs apartment, the one that I had heard the commotion coming from. He was the owner of an import/export business, and for whatever reason, had a sizable sum of money in cash hidden in his apartment. Someone had obviously found out about it and planned out the robbery that woke me from my sleep on Friday night. A group of 8 men had followed him into the apartment building's garage and then ambushed him as he got out of his car. And judging from the gash on his face, they roughed him up a bit. Some of the group of 8 had gone to the lobby, surprised the security guard, and then zip-tied him. And the remainder of the group had gone up to the apartment, robbed it, and then fled the scene. It is fairly chilling to think that armed men were mere meters from my front door. So, to the armed men that stormed my apartment building to steal my neighbor's cash. Let's not meet. This happened to me when I was a teenager, some years ago, but I still think about it sometimes. So, me and my 4 friends were on this 1-hour bus ride to go to my parents' house to hang out. We were sitting and chatting in the back of the bus. The bus is empty except for us and this middle-aged man sitting a couple of seats away from us. He looked like a normal businessman on his way to work or something, wearing a suit and carrying a briefcase. But after a while, we noticed that he was behaving kind in a weird way. He was chugging down beers rapidly, which is not that common on the bus, and also, it was in the middle of the day. He was also pretty openly flipping through a porno magazine and kind of muttering to himself. Okay, weird, but we didn't really get too bothered. But after a while, he starts approaching us, sitting closer and small talking with us a bit. He was asking how old we are, where we're headed, and so on. We kind of just reply politely but try to end the conversation pretty quickly since he's creeping us out. Apart from the beer drinking and the porn magazine, you can really sense something is wrong with this guy. He's grinding his teeth a lot, and he has this blank stare like he is looking right through you, and he's not really there, you know? When we stop talking to him after a while, he just sits there silently and then stares at us for a while, breathing heavily like he's getting more and more agitated. And after a minute or so, he suddenly leans forward and then pulls down the sleeve of his shirt. On his arm, he has 3 big pairs of sharp-looking scissors duct taped to his arm with the sharp end pointing up towards his hand. He's stretching out his arm and making sure that we all see the scissors, and then he says, Does this make you respect me? Am I getting your respect now?" We just sit there with our mouths open. I'm scared as shit, not really sure what to say or do, and just panicking because I'm not sure what this guy is capable of. And after a moment, he leans back again and continues staring at us, not saying anything more. And we don't say anything either, afraid of setting him off, I guess. Well, we get off the next station, all jittery and full of adrenaline after that weird encounter. If I wasn't a clueless teenager, I would have called the police at that point. But we didn't, and I still think about it sometimes and wonder what a guy like that, who is obviously unhinged, is capable of. And if he ever did something worse than just scare some teenagers by acting crazy. My auntie owns a local diner in the middle of a small town where everyone knows everyone. And recently, she had almost half of her waiters quit within a month, which she knew about but didn't tell me why when telling my mom this, and I overheard it while doing homework at the dining table. Then, she asked my mom if my 2 older sisters could help out, but my mom said that the oldest is moving out of town to live with her fiancé, but agreed to let my second older sister work. Then my auntie asked about me. Mind you, I'm a 15-year-old girl, and the last thing on my mind to do after school is going to work, even just for a few hours. Even if I find time to get home in the evening and then finish my homework, I still wouldn't like the idea at all. My mom was quiet for a little before agreeing, since even I know that money is a touchy subject. Ever since my dad divorced my mom, I was chosen to stay with my mom 100% because my dad is an alcoholic and often liked to hurt my mom and have done some nasty things to my sisters and I. I don't know where he is now, probably in jail or married to another poor woman who will be his next victim. But that's partially the reason why we were struggling when it comes to money. Fast forward a week, I went to school on a Wednesday morning like normal, except I had to pack a set of extra clothes in my already stuffed backpack. My aunt talked to me and told me that I have to wear a uniform, and she doesn't want my mom to know what I wear. She wants me to put it into my backpack instead of going to school in it. She even said that she can wash it every week since it'll probably smell like eggs and other diner foods. I usually take the bus to school, so days that I work, I would take another bus that dropped me off about a 2-minute walk away from the diner. The bus driver really didn't care about if we got off on unusual stops, or maybe they had no idea and were just working for a paycheck, much like I'm about to do. And at each end of my shift, my auntie will drop me off back home, after I change back, of course. Once at the diner, I would go to the back through the kitchen, which had 2 chefs who work harder than any cook that I have ever seen, and right to my auntie's office. There, I could see her computer on a desk and a whole lot of paperwork, some clothes all around, and it's just a total mess. My outfit is basically a button-down white t-shirt and a white miniskirt and one of those tiny aprons that only cover from waist to crotch area. I kind of like the way this fits on me, but the fact that I'm wearing all white means that I'm going to get dirty maybe every single night. My sister has a similar outfit, but her skirt is longer since she sometimes does shave her legs or something. I just know that I don't have the same issue she has. The first night went well, actually. I got a lot of people looking at me funny and asked if I'm a kid, to which I told them my age, and some of them were upset that a kid is working. Some were happy that they think that I'm trying to help the family business, and some were just weird and happy to just see me. Whatever the reason it was, I just like talking to people, so this was super easy. Plus, most of them didn't mind if I would bring out 1 plate at a time instead of like 5 or 6 like pro waitresses. But Friday night comes around, and this is the night that I finally meet the guy who's one of the main reasons why those other waitresses quit. My auntie really wanted me to meet him since he's in about 3 or 4 times a week and orders a good portion. His name was Larry, and he seems really nice and friendly. He even treated me more like a friend than a waitress. I would have me sit down with him while he told me stories about how he fixed cars, his travels for work, eats at every restaurant ever, and stayed at every hotel in the world. I never told him my age, but I'm pretty sure that he can tell that I'm a minor. Often enough, he sits at a booth in the corner of the restaurant, and he would ask me to sit beside him so he could kick his feet up on the other side of the bench, which I don't really mind. But it only started to get weird when he would poke one of the buttons hidden from my apron and think it's my belly button, and then ask if I had an outie belly button and if I'm ticklish. I do in fact have an outie belly button, but I didn't tell him that. I would just fake a giggle, and sometimes I would feel his hand brush up on my chest, which I don't care much of either. But there was a few times that I felt like he was feeling my chest for my nipple, which I still don't know why he would want to see them, since my chest is still pretty flat. Again, I'm 15, and I know that it will grow. Sometimes, he grabs my arm or my thigh, and then he gives me massages, which really don't feel good, and if I tell him that I don't like it, he just tells me that I will start to like it. Usually, after every visit from Larry, I would make up a dozen excuses that I needed to go before he would accept and then let me go. I didn't mind anything weird about Larry, He seems innocent enough, like a grandpa who just wants to spend time with his grandkids. But I really wish I wasn't chosen to babysit him every time he comes here. And since he spends like 100 a week here, my auntie tells me to just ignore and let him ramble on, since he's the reason that this business is still afloat, which are my auntie's words. I'm pretty sure $100 a week cannot cover the rent alone. After about a week of seeing Larry almost most of my shift, he came in with his laptop and showed me his Facebook and told me to look myself up so we can be friends. I seriously don't want Larry in my life 24/7, so I just lied and I told him that I never made a Facebook. He simply laughed, thought for a second, and wrote my whole name out in the search bar. For a second, I was so shocked that I turned pale, even for my light skin. I had a name tag, but only my first name. But my stupid sister probably told him our last name when he asked. She may be older, but she doesn't act like it. He found a picture of me and sent a friend request, to which my phone goes off, making Larry laugh, and my heart dropped into my stomach. He sent me a few messages, just to hear my phone go off a few times as I pulled it out and fake laughed before swallowing the throw up in my mouth. He then proceeds to go through my gallery, which my Facebook is public, since I was pretty stupid enough to want to make as many friends as possible, much like Instagram, and try to gain as many followers. He found pics of me that I wish he wouldn't find and could comment on how my clothes are too revealing and that I should take these pictures down. He commented on my friends and how he could find me a good set of friends to be with, to which I had no idea who he's referring to since he told me before that he has no kids and he lives alone. Then, even seeing pics of me with my belly button revealed, and comment on my outie belly button and poke my belly again. I could really feel his finger trying to find my belly button again, which just felt so disgusting that I just got up without a reason this time and I just stormed to my auntie's office. I confessed everything to her and told her how disgusted I am. And at first, she seemed to be on my side, but when I explained the things he did to me, she quickly changed sides and told me that I'm just over-exaggerating and he's just treating me like a kid in a friendly way. I wanted to burst out crying and ask my sister for help, even wanting to talk to my mom about this and confess it all. But my sister calmed me down and told me how Auntie would have to let us go. Then, we wouldn't have enough money to keep our apartment, and then we'll have to live with Dad. I have no idea if this were true, but the things my dad did to me are in fact worse than what Larry had done so far. So fast forward a few months to present day, I still work at the diner and still see Larry on an almost daily basis. He still acts the same and once in a while touches me, but it's gotten to a point that it's nothing too concerning, like my chest or thigh, which I still don't care about too much. I only care when he tries to touch my belly button or nipple. I know that for summer, Mom will make me work, and because of my age, I legally can't find a job anywhere else. I'm pretty much okay if I have to keep working for summer. The only good thing about Larry is that he would often order twice in one sitting, which made Auntie very happy, and I would get a good tip because of it. I guess if you have advice, then I'll take it, but I don't think that getting rid of Larry will be of my best interest, since I've read too many creepy stories of stalker situations, and trying to escape the creep only makes things worse. But also, Auntie probably would fire me, and Mom would be upset. If I reveal all of this to Mom, this would only make our family situation much worse, since my mom relies on Auntie way too much. But either way, it feels good to share this. I feel like just talking about it makes me feel better, and reading other stories make me feel like I'm not alone, and maybe I'll find help in the best way. I might be in this situation for a while, but sharing it relieves some of my stress. Thanks again for listening. If I have any updates, I will post them here. This happened around 2021 in India, around COVID period where lockdowns were still very much effective. My dad used to live in another city, my brother was in college, and my mom had a government job, so she had to go to her office every day. So, I was basically left alone from 10 a.m. to around 6 p.m. We used to live in an apartment unit, but it had two doors. One was the main door, and the other one was located in the biggest bedroom, basically my parents' room. The door was clearly locked with an actual lock from the outside, but it also had a metal sliding door, the one with the chain structure, and it was also locked from the outside. We had a ring bell on the outside, but it was just connected to a small bulb in the bedroom. So, one day at around 12 p.m., I was in my room, which was basically adjacent to my parents' room, and I felt, I don't know, weird. So I just went to check the room. I went to the room to see the bulb blinking, which meant that someone was ringing the doorbell. My mom used to say to just ignore it because if it was someone we knew ringing it, they would know the real door. I stood there for a moment when the person started knocking really hard on the door like it was straight up rattling. But the thing was, due to the metal gate in front of it, it would be very hard to put your hand inside to knock at the actual door. Even I couldn't put then half of my palm on it. And this man was straight up banging on it. I got scared and I called my mom, who told me to not panic. But I was really weirded out, so I locked my parents' door with the lock that they had, and I went downstairs to chill in my brother's room. It was one of those days where my mom straight up wouldn't return like till 8 p.m., so I was alone for a long time and I was scared to even go upstairs. Around 6 p.m., our helper auntie came and I was a little better that someone else was in the house. And during that time, I used to take private classes and my teacher used to come around at 7:30 p.m., so I really felt better that I'd be having people. Our main door had a big window just beside it, so whenever someone was at the door, we used to open the window to check who it was before opening it. But Auntie had the habit to open it without checking. Like you memorize the timings of people, so you just open it because you know that it will be them kind of thing. Fortunately that day, when the doorbell rang, she opened the window, and then she came to my brother's room to tell me that I had a cake delivery. The thing is, I didn't, obviously, so I went out to check through the window. There was a man with a cap hiding his face, holding a very small box. Now, a cake box is very square and big, right? Even a pound cake has a big-ass box. And in India, we have a very small sweet box, so imagine a 100-gram sweet box being called a cake box. And I asked him who was the delivery for. He didn't give me any name, not even of the company. He just told me that it was for our flat. I called my mom and asked if she had made the delivery, and she didn't know what I was talking about. So the dude was like, just accept the box and open the door. And by a miracle, my teacher walked up the stairs and asked what was happening. The dude saw my teacher and he ran up the stairs and we let our teacher enter. Later, when my mom inquired about a delivery guy coming to our flat with a security guard, he said that he wasn't there at his post for around half an hour when it happened. And we didn't have any CCTVs in our building, so no one saw him. It wasn't that scary, maybe, but it did shake me up, and I asked my mom to at least come quickly from her office on the next day. And I didn't stay upstairs when I was home alone. For a little bit of a background, I'm a 24-year-old female who loves scary stories, horror movies, true crime, and etc. It takes a lot to scare me, though I haven't actually experienced many terrifying, life-threatening events, fortunately. Now, on to the story. This was during the middle of August in North Texas summer 2023, so the nighttime temperatures were around 100 degrees. My dad and one of my brothers, who's 11, drove an hour north into the countryside to go stargazing for my brother's Scout merit badge. There are some twisty gravel roads in the forest as you approach Black Creek Lake. We got to see a coyote, a deer, and 2 raccoons. We live in the city, so we don't often see such animals. We thought that it would be our excitement for the night. We then finally made it to the recreational park grounds beside the lake. The layout is simple. If you're standing in the round parking lot, then the campgrounds are to the north and west, and the lake is south, and the path in and out is east of us. There are no official campgrounds east of this recreational area, which is important for later. We got there at around 10 p.m. and then we set up. We were able to successfully see some stars through my telescope as well as Saturn, which was really exciting for us. And throughout this whole time though, there were 2 parties, or what might have been one group, in the parking lot and a surrounding nearby area. One party was kayaking and then later fishing from the boat ramp area west of us. And to the north in the lot were 2 cars. From that direction, we were constantly hearing a loud, irritating voice of a woman who was obviously in a bad mood and didn't want to be there. She continuously cursed at someone, or no one in particular, and at one point was mad at someone for taking her keys and obstructing her from driving, which obviously made it sound like she was drunk or under some other influence. At one point in the night, at around 11 p.m., we hear someone loudly, sporadically honk one of the car horns over and over in random patterns. Then, we hear the obnoxious woman rudely tell someone to wake up over and over again, then proceeding to hold down the horn for a few seconds at a time, and then continuing her assault on the horn in our ears. By this point, my family and I are just about ready to leave due to this loud commotion. I personally was fixing to go over there myself and tell her off, but I knew that probably wasn't the best idea. I definitely didn't want to put myself and my unborn baby in any danger. But then, for about 20 to 30 minutes, we were able to watch the stars in relative peace with little noise coming from the other 2 parties. And fortunately, none of these people were directly involved with what happened next, but it may have been the cause of it. Just before midnight, we packed up our stargazing stuff and got in the car. Now, the gravel path to exit is up a slight hill or slope, meaning from the parking lot, you can't see past where the path goes up and around a couple trees. We drive up the hill, and just as the headlights came back down to illuminate the path in front of us and the trees to our right side, it was right then and there that we see a man, wearing only black shorts and no shirt on. The timing was straight out of a horror movie to just suddenly see someone out of nowhere. He was in his late 20s or 30s and had short, dark hair. And just as the light hit him, he was standing and walking right there, just to the right of our car, in front of us at a very close distance, only a couple of feet away. The guy had been walking towards our direction, and upon seeing us, quickly raised both his arms to flip us off with both hands. He keeps his hands and arms raised and is quickly and loudly saying something to us with anger or something in his voice. We couldn't understand what he was saying though, since we had the radio on, and all of this happened quickly. The second the man saw us, he started walking toward our car faster. My dad was driving slowly initially to avoid the agitated man, thinking that he might need help. My dad in a confused voice says, What is he doing?" But I just reply with, "Nope, go, go, go!" And then we sped off. I knew that this was not a situation where we needed to stick around and ask questions. It freaked me out a little imagining what would have happened if the guy had reached the car a few seconds later if we hadn't sped off. I'm not very familiar with my dad's car, and it scares me that I might have ended up pressing the wrong button to unlock my door, and the guy could have opened it and done who knows what. We left and never had anything else happen. But we did wonder who that guy was and where he came from. The direction he was walking from had no official campgrounds, only the forest. Maybe he lived in one of the scattered houses in the woods that we'd passed by on our long journey. I wondered why he had been walking in our direction toward the recreational area. My best theory is that he wanted to confront the group that had been honking the horn and waking up the entire forest, but upon seeing our car leave, maybe he thought that it had been us making the racket. Even if that's not it, or the man needed help, which is not likely considering his reaction to us, I couldn't help but feel a sense of danger. I hope that no harm came to those other two parties that night. First of all, this is the story of my worst hitchhiking experience. This incident was sketchy as fuck, but I still wouldn't give up my love for hitchhiking. I'm a 21-year-old man from Finland, and I was 20 at the time of the incident. Anyway, to the story. This happened on the 2nd of December last year in Kalamata, Greece. I had been hitchhiking for quite a while at that point. I had started from Budapest, and I had hitchhiked through 7 different countries with only positive outcomes. The story begins at around 11 a.m. on Saturday. Some hours before I had woken in my hammock hung up behind the castle ruins, in the only place that had trees that weren't someone's olive trees. I was tired from the lack of sleep caused by the cold night and early wake up by noises of the busy market across the street. After a quick tour of the town and some breakfast, it was time for hitchhiking. I made a sign with the words Athens and Sparta in Greek, and I was standing by a road leading to a roundabout where the first exit goes towards Areopoli, the second towards Sparta, and the third towards Athens. A lot of cars drove by, but nearly all of them took the first exit. It took at least an hour for the first car to stop. It was this small, quite old, worn-out white car, and driving it was an older guy around 60 who looked like a little dirty. He had greasy hair, some teeth missing, and a big nose filled with visible blackheads. He didn't really speak English, but I could understand that he was going to Sparta. I was a bit frustrated by the fact that pretty much all the cars were going towards Areopoli, so I thought that this may be my only chance, and I jumped in. We are trying to have a conversation, but without a shared language, it isn't really possible. We introduced ourselves, and I try to explain where I'm from. He smokes and offers me a cigarette too, but I refuse. We drive just shy of 6 kilometers. before the guy suddenly makes a left turn and we end up in his yard. He stops the car, gets up, and signals me to follow. So I do. I take my bags and I feel a bit confused. It's a small house on the mountain, surrounded by sheep and olive trees. There's a dog sleeping in the sun, but it doesn't seem to be bothered by us at all. We walk to his balcony/terrace that surrounds his house, and I put my bags inside of his house and I join him sitting on the balcony. He lights up another cigarette and asks if I want to eat something or maybe take a shower. I refuse, and with the help of Google Translate, I ask why we aren't going to Sparta. He answers that I can sleep at his house and he'll drive me there tomorrow. I try to explain that I would like to get to Sparta or even to Athens today, so staying at this place isn't really an option. I'm pointing out that there's not that many cars going past his house, like maybe one every 15 minutes, and only some 4 to 5 hours of daylight left, so every minute is valuable to me. He doesn't really seem to understand me, so I just get up. I walk through the door to grab my bags. I put my backpack on and pick up my other bag, and I turn over and see him inside. I try to walk out, but he stops me and then guides me to the side. He locks the door and then turns to me. At this moment, I'm not panicking or anything because I assume that this is a form of hospitality and he's just doing this jokingly to maybe offer me some food. I keep saying no to him, but he doesn't care. And now, he is standing right in front of me and I'm starting to feel very disturbed by his presence. For some reason, I keep staring at his black head-filled nose. The image still haunts me. He opens his mouth and raises his right hand in a loose fist in order to show me some blowjob motion. I'm still saying no to him, but he suddenly grabs me by the crotch and I can feel this cold tingling sensation shivering through my body as my hair stood on end. I kept saying no and I start to raise my fist in order to hit him. He stands like this for a couple of seconds and thank God he lets go. I'm still feeling the urge to hit him, but I don't. He asks, "No sex?" And I almost shout, "No!" at him in a tone that makes it sound that I'm questioning the question itself. So he opens the door and I'm free. I walk out feeling so fucking creeped out by this experience. I walk past the dog to the road and I see 2 pickup trucks on the other side of the road. The trucks are surrounded by a group of hunters carrying shotguns on their shoulders. This makes me instantly feel a lot safer. I keep walking by the road for a while before a car passes me by. It's quite warm and I'm in the middle of nowhere, so I empty one of my water bottles and turn it upside down, showing it to the cars passing by so they would think that I'm out of water. This works and the second car stops. I get to Sparta and later that day to Athens safely. But I felt disgusting until I got to take a shower. All the kindness that I had experienced while hitchhiking before this event had made me too comfortable, and I had let my guard down. I think humans are good by nature, but probably trusting every stranger is a stretch. Stranger danger is still overrated though. Additional notes. 1. I'm quite a lean guy, not that strong, so I was lucky that the situation didn't end up worse. Though, I think I could have beaten that also very lean shepherd grandpa. 2. As a safety measure, I carried a knife with me, but it wasn't on me at that moment of the incident. Also, the knife could have made the situation worse. Obviously, I wouldn't have stabbed him unless it wasn't necessary. Number 3. My mind was running like a million miles an hour during and after this experience. and I thought about how everything could have turned out in the worst case. I also thought about beating the guy, telling about the incident to the hunters, and calling the police. But I ended up doing nothing and just walking away. I hope karma gets to him eventually. And lastly, after this experience, I still think hitchhiking is the best way of traveling. So, to that sick fuck of a person, let's never meet again. And here's the riddle for this video. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate it. I would also like to give some extra love to my Patreon members, my channel members, and also my tippers. Thank you so much. If you would like to extend a little bit more support for the channel, don't forget to leave a like and a comment down below. If you would like to become a Patreon member, a channel member, a tipper, or even to buy merch, check out the links in the description below. Again, thank you. And I hope you stay scared because your fear feeds me.